Are you someone who has a lot of art supplies? You are? Good. Tired of all those inconveniently shaped swatch sheets that they come with? Well, toss them. Now introducing Swatch Catalog, a place to keep all of your swatches neat and accessible and all in the same size, containing all of your swatches at your convenience in an adorable container. Comes in 3 colors, orange, lavender, and blue. Get your own swatch catalog that is beautifully organized and easy to update and never have to reach for those old swatch sheets again. Now you can draw with ease with Swatch Catalog. Not available for purchase in stores or online. Recently I was drawing with acrylic markers and I just noticed how annoying the swatch sheets were. I like to use them because it helps me figure out the colors that I want to use, because not everything looks exactly as it does displayed on the pencil or the marker or the pen or whatever, which is why they give you those swatch sheets so you can swatch them and see how the colors are and how they dry, or even see how they look on black paper. And specifically with the acrylic markers that I recently got and been loving, been needing to use the swatch sheets because they don't always dry the color that it looks. I was like, maybe we'll try to fit it in the case so that it's always there, because it came in this envelope that I have to keep separately, and the envelope nor the swatch sheets fit in the case that the markers came in. So it's just like, that's dumb. I was just like, I mean, maybe I should just make something to have all my swatch sheets in, which is sort of how this idea developed into like making some kind of container or Rolodex, something to have little swatch sheets that are smaller, easier for me to grab, always nearby, and contains like all of the things that I use, all of the markers and like pens that I draw with. Sometimes I just needed something to like have everything. So that's how this idea started, and I made something. I feel like I invented something, but I don't know. I just wanted to share with you how I made, which I am now dubbing like Swatch Catalog. I thought Swatch Rolodex would be cool, but I don't know, just none of the names sound good. If you come up with a fun name, maybe I'll change the name of it. But for right now, I'm just calling it my little Swatch Catalog, containing all of the swatches that I made myself of all of the markers that I use all the time, all of the pens that I use. And with all that explaining out of the way, let's get into the tutorial. First, I needed to figure out where to keep all of these new swatches that I was going to be making, so I have a couple of these collapsible crates, and I thought it'd be perfect. Here are the dimensions if you'd like to get one of these, and yeah, if you want to like completely copy me, those are the sizes and that's the crate. And I'm going to be using index cards for the swatches because I want them to be smaller and just a lot more easier to organize. As you saw in the beginning, those swatch sheets are so big and there's so many different sizes. I just want them all to be the same exact size. Since the index card didn't fit like how I want them to, I just folded a separate one to see like what would be the perfect size to cut it, and I'm going to use that as a template. So I'm just going to hold a binder clip against them so that they all stay in one place. You can cut them all individually, but honestly, to save time, just clip them with like a paper clip or something, or just hold them really tight with your hands if you don't have any of those things, and have your template in front of them, and then just cut straight down where the template is. And make sure you keep those scraps of paper because we're going to use those towards the end of the video. We're going to be making some kind of like tabs to actually organize them all. Now that our swatches are all ready, now it's time to figure out what to start swatching. I thought I'd start with the thing that started this whole idea, which were the acrylic markers, and I decided to just end up swatching all of the like markers and materials that I use the most. So beginning with the acrylic markers, it was a little tricky at first because I wanted it to fit evenly on here, and since there were 36 markers, I just went 6 across and 6 down, and then making sure that I know which each of these are. They all have their own identification numbers or letters, so I wrote all those down with a mechanical pencil because these swatches are very small, so I want them to fit on the paper, so I had to find a tiny pencil to write these with. And I left the side on the right blank on accident, but it actually ended up being a little helpful. Since there are 3 rows of markers, I decided to identify them as that, so I drew that symbol that means to group And I just wrote 1, 2, 3, a thing at the top that said row so that I know what those things mean. There is our first swatch. And then I realized that these markers came with 2 swatch sheets, one in white paper and one in black paper. So I was like, I should do one made out of black paper. So I don't have black index cards, and I don't even know if they make those. So I'm just going to use the envelope that it came in, and I'm just going to tear apart this envelope and just like glue this index card to it so that it's the same size as the index card and the same thickness. It is a little bit thicker because of the envelope paper that will be on top of it, but I'm just using some good old Elmer's school glue and gluing the front side to it, and then cutting that shape out as close as I can so there's not any extra sides on the edges, and then doing the swatches all over again. And since I didn't think that graphite would be visible on this black paper, I'm going to be using one of my colored mechanical pencils, and I'm going to be using yellow. You could try using a white gel pen of some kind or a really sharp colored pencil to get those little numbers or letters. And then I'm going to be repeating the same exact process with one of my other favorite markers, which are my Tombow markers. I have a bunch of these that I sort of just put in their own like rainbow order, so this was a little more difficult to organize, but they do have numbers on the markers, and some of them are very close to the same color, so I like to write it down. And I had a little sort of swatch sheet on my little my mini sketchbook, but I have to go to the back to the sketchbook to see that. So this was a great thing that I came up with making the swatch sheets all in one place. And then I continued on with these double-sided stamped markers that I have. So for these swatches, they don't have any numbers or letters on the markers, so I kind of just have to figure out what they look like. So for these I did the stamp, and then I went to the other side of the marker and I just sort of drew a little squiggle so that I know how the other side of the marker works. And then I continued on with my Crayola fine tip markers. I've had these for years and years. They don't have any numbers or words on them either, so I kind of have to again figure out what they look like. And then I continued on again with these fine liners that I have. They're from Artist Loft. I don't use them that much, but I was just sort of grabbing anything that had more than one color to do some swatches with. And then another big group of markers, which are my alcohol markers from Ohuhu, and I have a lot of these, as you can see in the big like little basket that I have. And this was a lot harder to do because there are so many of them, and I have 2 sets mixed in there, so I had to really make sure that I was doing them correctly. A lot of these do not look like the color that they are at the end of the marker, which is why the swatch sheets are so important. And this was probably one of the most difficult ones that I did for these swatches, because I had to get them all lined up so that I don't miss one or mess up. And all of these markers all together, it's like a canon event that like it's harder to find which marker you're looking for because there's so many and the words are so small and there's so many different numbers. It's just a canon event that everybody experiences with these, just trying to find the marker that you're looking for. And something weird happened with this marker. I have not used my other set in a really long time, so I don't know if it like exploded in there or something. I don't know what happened to that one. And then I realized that I started doing these a lot smaller than the other ones, which did help me separate the two. But then I was like, oh, I gotta be a little bit more careful. And some of these I didn't even have anymore. That one that I drew an X for, I had tossed it because it was completely dry and I didn't see a need for keeping it. I know they sell refills and individual markers to like replace, but I never got around to doing that, and I haven't used these markers in a long time either. Like I mentioned, I really had to take my time with doing the swatches for these because I had to get them all in order and make sure I knew what I was doing. And then I guess I got in the zone and I did more. I did like 7 or 8 instead of 6 like I've been doing. So this last sheet is a little out of order. It just doesn't look as even as the other ones do, but after 3 sheets and probably over an hour of doing that, finally finished with the Ohuhu marker set. And then I finished off with doing my watercolors, which again was a little bit more difficult because I had to make sure my paintbrush was clean and free of that previous color so that they didn't mix. And I also had to do a couple of coats of some of these colors just because watercolor can be sort of thin and dull. So this one also took a little bit longer, but I kind of found it therapeutic in the end. I was just watching a bunch of like funny compilations on YouTube while I was doing this, so it was a fun thing to do. But man, my back was really hurting towards the end of this because I've been sitting at my desk and just, repeating the same motions over and over again. And writing down the swatch names was also a little bit tedious because some of the names are longer and some of them even have multiple names. Like on that bottom half of that larger swatch sheet, there's a ton of metallic colors there. So when it got to like writing down what the color names were, I just ended up starting M for metallic and then the name because I was having a hard time writing metallic green, dark green. It was just like too many names to fit in between these little circles. So I just started, writing M for metallic and then just continuing. And that took 4 sheets because it was 100 little watercolors. So I had to divide that evenly. And as I mentioned earlier, keep those scraps of paper, don't throw them out, because we're going to be making some makeshift tabs to organize all of these. So I drew sort of a shape for the tab, kind of like what a manila folder looks like, and then I used a template again, and then I cut all of those out and glued them to the back of the index card. I had to cut some extra index cards out because I just had enough for the swatches. So if you have, I don't know how many index cards I used for all of this, but like if you have like a big stack, you'll be fine. And like I said, we'll be using some scrap papers as well, so you don't need to like cut a bunch of new ones out. Then I glued them to the back and sort of in a descending order and then back to ascending, because so that they're all aren't exactly behind each other. I wanted them so that I could read them. If you'll see what I mean. And yeah, then I continued on with that. Watch carefully if you don't understand what I'm trying to explain. But if the same like tab was all in the same position, then it'd be harder to see what the next tab said because they're all behind each other. And so if they were all sort of a little off center and then another off center one, then it'd be easier to see what they say. Sort of like a filing system. You're like still able to read what all of those things say because they're in ascending and descending order and so on. If you're having a hard time like figuring out how to make them so they're not all behind each other, you can just start stacking them on top of each other on the back and then gluing the tab to the back, and then you see exactly like where the next one would go. And then I wrote down all of the labels for them, all of the markers that I swatched with this like little pen that I have, and then I started to organize them all where they go. Acrylic markers with the acrylic markers, and can fit them all in there. And then I realized how big this container was for all of these. I don't know why I was anticipating that I would have so many little pieces of paper. This is like not even an inch of like a stack of paper. So I realized that I had to do something with the back of it. And now in this video, I just put a little piece of cardboard in the back there. But after this, I took that cardboard out and I just put some storage behind all the swatches. And so I just put like things that I would normally need if I'm drawing. So I put my sharp burners there and all of my erasers, even a binder clip if I need one, to keep the pages together. And if you have a lot of stuff, you can do all of your colored pencils, but I have too many, so I didn't do that for this video, but you can, and you'll probably fill up your whole container. So let me know if there is something out there like this specifically for this need, or maybe if there's just a better container for it. But even if there is like a company that makes something like this, companies don't know you better than you do, especially us artists. I don't know, let me know if you followed this tutorial and made it, or if you modified it better for you. This was such an interesting project. I thought I had a really good idea in my head, and then sort of played out. It just didn't end up turning how I thought it would, like I mentioned, but I do like the idea of it, and it's a lot easier than having like those giant sheets that I have to keep in weird places instead of just having one place for all of them. So now I do. So subscribe for more projects and videos like this. I have all kinds of playlists for my studio vlogs, all my sketchbook tours. I have a bunch of like crafty videos, my sculpting videos, and tons of drawing videos. And I just do a lot of variety of like art things. And that's, you know, I always say this is why I make videos. I love to inspire other people, and I love watching art people do things, and I'm just always inspired by art, and I love making things. And recently I had a comment, a teacher was using one of my sculpting videos as like a tutorial in their class, so that's really cool. I love to hear that kind of stuff. And just thank you all for watching my videos, and if you're new here, welcome. Subscribe for all the fun things that I just mentioned. And yeah, I hope I inspired you, and I will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.